When did this all start? I mean, is this out of Roswell? Is it predate that? Like when did they first realize that there are things that cannot be explained or can't be explained through conventional means?
Yeah, I mean, the program goes back a ways. The precise beginning of it, I can't talk about, but I did, because of security stuff, but I did talk about publicly the 1933 retrieval.
Yo, peeps, welcome to the Conspiracy Cupboard. So today we've got Disclosure Part 2 coming up, and we're going to be looking into the 1933 UFO crash, which appears to be the first recorded crash retrieval that we know of. So here we go. Let's start looking into these and some other claims as we carry on our route to disclosure. Cue title sequence. Yeah! There we go. Title sequence away. So, as you saw in my last episode, I left off with a clip from David Grusch from Joe Rogan's episode. So I hope you've all been and watched that. If you've not, go check out the full thing from David Grusch where he basically talks to him. He does mention Bob Lazar, and I'm going to mention Bob Lazar in this video as well. With regards to the channel, then, I just want to thank all my new subscribers. If you come along from the shorts, you've probably seen a lot of comedy videos, and I am going to be doing some comedy stuff. I'm going to be filming some venues and some places that I'm going to be at as well. So I'll hopefully get a bit of content for you for there to sort of expand on the channel. I hopefully have got some interviews coming up now that I've worked out how to sort of work the computer and things and some other little bits. So we should have some interviews coming up for the podcast. We're going to have some more episodes of Trivial for me and Mr. Dermy, just talking about random stuff on the Conspiracy Cupboard podcast. So lots of exciting things coming up. So today, I want to look at the alleged first UFO retrieval then. That David Grusch has mentioned in Congress. He's mentioned it on Joe Rogan.
Because I wanted to show that this is much older and it's international. It's not like a U.S. thing. I mean, this stuff is landing or crashing around the world, and unexpected countries have had this happen. And that's why I picked that, because I thought that was a interesting case. And then, of course, Pope Pius XII and the Vatican were involved, back-channeling it through the OSS, which became the CIA later, to FDR. And that's how the U.S. knew something weird happened in Italy right before World War II. But
so this was 33 was the first, documented?
He didn't say that this was the first. He said there could be others, but this is the first documented one that he's got his hands on and that he's basically been relayed to.
That is the earliest one I can talk about, yeah.
There's something that predates that?
You could infer that.
You could infer that.
Yeah.
So this 33 one you said was in Italy?
Yeah, Magenta. So it's I'm bad at geography. I think that's like a Lombardy region. It's like northwest Italy.
And what's the story behind it?
So if you're not clued up on this, let's get into it then. So the world's first reported crash of an unidentified flying object happened in Italy in 1933. This is with a retrieval effort as well. So the first one that we know of in law is Roswell. Okay, the UFO crash at Roswell. This is obviously saying that there was an unidentified crash in Italy in 1933 during the reign of Benito Mussolini. Italian researcher Roberto Piniot spoke to the Daily Mail and even shared evidence to his claims. If Piniot's claims are indeed true, they mandate a change in historical records, often referring to the 1947 incident in Roswell, as I've mentioned. Piniot and his colleagues have been working to learn more about the 1933 crash in Lombardy and received some original secret documents about it in 1996. The documents were sent to the researchers by an unidentified source who claimed to have inherited them from a relative who lived at the time and was part of a secret department allegedly set up by Mussolini to study the saucer. So this is another thing that I want to go into is I assume pretty much most governments have some kind of UFO program. if UFOs, if UAPs, if whatever you want to call them, unidentified phenomenon, aerial phenomenon, unidentified aerial threats, anomalous threats, whatever you want to call these things, if they're not real, if they're not from somewhere else, if we don't know what they are, why do all these governments have stuff set up? I've looked into the Five Eyes thing, showed you a bit about, Five Eyes versus BRICS, the World War III stuff, okay? We'll do a bit more coverage on Five Eyes and their crash retrieval, because this is where it stems from World War II. So this is what we're going to get into.
It's so funny because the Italians were so confused. They actually called up the Germans and they were like, is this one of your Wunderwaffe? Like, what the hell just crashed in northern Italy? Mussolini. And this is all publicly available information because some Italian researchers found all these original documents that some people were sitting on for years in Italy. They put a gag order on the press, etc. And Mussolini asked the Germans to come down. And of course, the Germans came down and they were like, that is not ours, but let's look at it together.
The documents shared by Pinot with the Daily Mail include 2 telegrams sent in 1933. One demands absolute silence over the alleged landing on national soil of an unknown aircraft. The other threatens to arrest and penalties for journalists reporting on news about the aircraft's origin and nature. Sorry if you can see my breath. It's very cold in here. It's November time. It's freezing at the minute. It's literally just dropped in the UK. So we're at -2 this morning. I'm going off on the story, but I've got to tell you this. -2 this morning. I didn't have to defrost the van, luckily, because it was already there, already nice and warm. But everywhere was beautiful white, and yeah. So anyway, divulging. Both these telegrams allegedly were sent on personal orders of second use, none other than Mussolini himself. Other documents sent to Pinot refers to the Gabinetto RS-33, a mysterious department that the dictator allegedly set up to receive and study the wreckage of the spacecraft that was retrieved. So that is obviously something that you can go and look into yourself. Gabinetto RS-33, this department that was basically set up to study this obviously downed, crashed aircraft. We don't know if it was shot down, if it fell out of the sky. What we do know is it was some kind of tic-tac shaped object. So I'm going to go into David Fravor again in a little bit, because obviously he saw a tic-tac shaped object in 2004. So Pinot and others believe that. Why do people give me horrible names? I choose subjects with people with really hard names. Guglielmo Marconi, I can say Marco. So Marconi, the inventor of the radio, was the head of RS-33, but other researchers have found no evidence of its existence so far. So this is the thing with UFO research, is you have to look at a lot of things to see if things kind of cross and tie in. If they don't, and it's just one source, it could be true, but you don't know, because you're never going to find out if it's just one person. Now, the reason I'm reading out this is because David Grusch has brought this forward. So not only have these researchers been looking into this, David Grusch is now backing up things that other people have brought forward, other researchers. And it did mention good old Bob Lazar on the Joe Rogan experience, but they didn't go any further in depth. I was like, go back, talk about him. What are you doing? You missed him out. You just mentioned Bob Lazar. What are your thoughts on David Grusch? And then it was onto something else, and I was like, damn you, go back and talk about him. Because surely he must, there's got to be some people that talk to him about Bob Lazar, or about these programs that Bob has mentioned and David Grusch has mentioned. We have other spacecraft in America, and apparently this is where one of them came from. So this leads me to the question then, where is the UFO now? So during World War II, the Allied forces bombarded Italy, but the aircraft facilities survived the raids, and it was secured by Allied troops. So the account is merely similar, obviously, to one that David Grusch brought forward, who said that it's now, obviously, in US custody. So where do we go from here then? Well, this is just obviously another key to unlocking the door to disclosure, to finding out what is actually going on. Now, I've mentioned the Foo Fighters before. So we obviously see that in 1933, before the war, and obviously after World War One, that something was flying about in our skies, something unidentified, and we didn't have technology like that. From what they're describing, it's a cylindrical object. It's a tic-tac shaped thing. They described it as a barrel or an oil drum. And that shape has been recorded many times. I mean, the crash in Aurora, Texas that I covered, that technically is the first crash and possibly a retrieval there as well. And that had an alien body that was buried. So go back and look at that episode. Alien crashes in Aurora, Texas, and I think that was really early 1900s, and that was a tic-tac shaped kind of object. So going into the next part, then we've got obviously this follows on to many other crash retrievals. So it's said there that obviously the Americans took this after World War II. Obviously, probably took it back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, somewhere over that way, and it's obviously ended up Area S4, I assume, which could have been one of the craft that Bob Lazar has seen. Now, I've got an episode that I'm going to be putting together, which is basically sort of a watch-along to the Joe Rogan Experience, the Bob Lazar episode, because it's an awesome interview. I mean, like the David Grusch one is. Excellent interview. I do wish he'd gone a bit deep on a few points, but obviously David Grusch cannot talk about a few things because he's still under Secrets Act kind of stuff. So he can't actually say too much about one thing. He can just give you the clues and bits to some pieces that he's allowed to say, which is, as I've mentioned before, if it's all a load of crap, why can't you just say it all, If you've got nothing to hide, you'd be like, go on, say what you want. We've got aliens, yeah. There's a starman waiting in the sky. He'd like to come and meet us, but he thinks he'd blow our minds. There's a starman waiting in the sky. You know what I mean? Like, you could basically say what you wanted, couldn't you? Pretty much. So, in that regard, then, where do we go from here? Well, I think this is part of the disclosure. I think this is slowly coming forward now. It's getting less and less ridiculous to believe in UFOs, to believe in aliens, extraterrestrials, other dimensions, interdimensional entities. So the next episode I'm going to be covering, I've got some current topics that I'll be doing as well. Like I mentioned earlier, obviously some podcasting stuff, but one of the next bits I'm going to be covering is dimensional time slipping, deja vu, things like this, okay? It's going to be separate to the disclosure stuff, but it's going to be part of, obviously, the pieces that I'm putting together for you to interconnect the paranormal and the UFOs, interdimensional beings, etc. So, as I mentioned earlier, David Fravor, Commander David Fravor, and it was Chad Underwood, not Chad Gable. I did an entire episode. I've left it on, right? You can go and watch it. It covers the Nimitz incident, but I kept calling Chad Underwood Chad Gable, the wrestler from WWE. I kept calling him that for the entire thing. I have no idea why. Just like, yeah, Chad Gable, and I'm like, okay, but I left it in because it's quite amusing. So anyway, yeah, but Chad Gable, he's the guy that actually took the footage of the Tic Tac, as they ended up calling it. And it was Chad Underwood that said it looks like a Tic Tac because that's what it kind of looked like. Now, Commander David Fravor is the guy that chased it. And he obviously reported this as Nimitz incident 2004. Everyone knows about this. He reported it in Congress. The reason I mention it, it was a Tic Tac shape. And we actually have image of this Tic Tac shape, that they caught, that sped off. So what are these things? We've got all this evidence building up now and building up. When do the floodgates open? When do they, Congress are stepping up. and coming forward, and you've got a lot of Congress, people in there saying, we want this, let's have the information on this. You had Senator Harry Reid, who was massively into it. And I'm going to do a piece on Harry Reid, because he's an important figure in the UFO world. He's given a lot of funding to study the UFO topic and pushing it and trying to get it into Congress, which it now is. It's just unfortunate that it's not being looked at in the UK seriously at all. It's not being mentioned once. We don't even look at stuff like this. I mean, for God's sake, in the UK, we don't even protect our own citizens, but let alone talk about UFOs. And we've had the hearing in Mexico, which you saw on Disclosure Part 1. So please let me know what you guys think about this 1933 incident in Italy. Let me know what you think about Commander David Fravor and his account. Go and watch the episode. It's a very old episode on there. And tell me what you guys think. I've got some sauna sessions coming up and some great discussions that I've been having with people to relay to you. So once again, thank you very much for subscribing. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And this has been Disclosure Part 2. So we've got the episode about time slipping, deja vu, other dimensions, and cryptids, very British cryptids, Part 2. See you